Red Bull rarely criticizes their star driver in public, but after Spain, Helmut Marko broke character. He called Verstappen's move emotional, unnecessary, and damaging. And he didn't say this behind closed doors. In front of the media, that's a big shift. Then Red Bull took it even further by canceling their post-race meeting with Max, citing his state of mind. That's not protection. That's retreat. Meanwhile, Mercedes stayed unusually calm. Toto Wolff didn't throw any harsh words, just a sly smirk and a cryptic remark about an angry taxi driver. So now the paddock is asking, is Mercedes quietly positioning themselves to sign Verstappen in 2026? That question holds weight, because when Helmut Marko publicly criticizes Max, it means something. This is the man who shielded Verstappen from media storms, regulatory backlashes, and team-wide controversies since 2016. Marco's loyalty to Max has always been fierce, sometimes even to a fault. So when he says publicly that Verstappen let emotions override his judgment and cost the team precious points, it's a crack in the armor. For the first time, Red Bull's leadership is framing Max as the problem, not the victim. This wasn't just a racing incident. According to Red Bull insiders, Max did what no champion should: act out of spite. The telemetry shows it. He lifted off the throttle as instructed to let George Russell through. But when he saw Russell in the mirror, not Norris, not Hamilton, but Russell, something changed. He hit the throttle again. That's when the contact happened. It was a split-second decision, but the implications were massive. Red Bull didn't try to spin it. They didn't protect him. Instead, they canceled the usual post-race debrief. They didn't trust Max to handle the criticism in the moment. That's new, and it's a sign of change. Internally, there's growing concern that Verstappen isn't adapting well to the mounting pressure, especially as Red Bull's advantage is shrinking. The once dominant Red Bull is no longer untouchable. McLaren is faster in certain sectors, Ferrari's upgrades are sticking, and Mercedes, although inconsistent, is closing in. Verstappen no longer has the track to himself, and that's when temperament starts to matter. Christian Horner took a diplomatic route. He confirmed Max apologized in private, but the fact that Red Bull had to make it public speaks volumes. It was a controlled leak designed to soften the blow. But the damage was already done, especially with Marco's blunt commentary making headlines everywhere. And as all of this unfolded, Toto Wolff, Red Bull's supposed rival, remained eerily silent. No calls for penalties, no fiery interviews. Just one odd comment. Verstappen drove like an angry taxi driver. That's not just a throwaway line. It's a message. Wolff is known for his psychological warfare. He knows how to plant seeds, deliver backhanded compliments, and make seemingly neutral comments that land hard. The contrast couldn't be starker. Red Bull was embarrassed, while Mercedes looked composed, controlled. And behind the scenes, speculation is growing. What if Toto Wolff is playing the long game? Mercedes will need a driver in 2026. Hamilton's already eyeing a move to Ferrari, racing for them in red, and the fans have already made peace with that. George Russell remains, but can he carry the team into the new regulations era alone? Kimi Antonelli looks promising, but he's not proven over a full season yet. Which brings us back to Verstappen. Yes, he's got a contract through 2028, but in Formula One, contracts aren't ironclad. There are clauses, exit options, and performance triggers. Most importantly, there's dissatisfaction. If Max feels unsupported at Red Bull, if the pressure continues to mount, if the team questions his judgment in public, those exit routes become a real temptation. And let's be honest, Mercedes would love to have him. He's the best driver of this generation. He brings instant performance, a fan base, sponsors, and media headlines. Wolff? He's no stranger to recruiting rival drivers. Remember how he handled Hamilton's move? Wolff knows how to make the big moves when the time is right. Remember when he poached Bottas from Williams, or when he courted Vandal, even briefly during the Rosberg exit? So maybe that explains the calm. Maybe that explains the silence, because Toto doesn't need to attack Verstappen. He just needs to wait. Meanwhile, Red Bull are stuck. Publicly, they have to back Max. But privately, they're watching a pattern emerge. The radio outbursts, the penalties, the emotional swings. These weren't as visible when the RB19 dominated in 2023. And even in 2024, the RB20 had enough of an edge to cover for inconsistencies. But 2025 is different. The field has closed in. Every mistake counts. Every meltdown costs. Even fans are starting to notice. Social media erupted after the Spanish GP, not just about the move, but about the reaction. Why is Max not held accountable? Why did Red Bull cancel the debrief? Why did Marco speak out only now? These are the questions swirling around the paddock, and they all point to the same theme: instability. Red Bull used to be a fortress. No leaks, no public criticism. Everything stayed in-house. But the Verstappen incident shattered that illusion. When your top advisor calls out your star driver and your rival team boss says nothing, the narrative flips. Suddenly, Red Bull look fractured. Mercedes look composed. And that brings us to 2026. Is Verstappen actually considering a move? It's too early to say, but insiders have reported growing tension between Max's camp and Red Bull management. Jo Verstappen, Max's father, hasn't been quiet about his concerns. He's criticized the team's direction before. He's hinted at favoritism, mismanagement, even strategic sabotage. Add that to the internal management disputes, the departure of key technical staff, and the tightening competition, and you've got a perfect storm. Verstappen's dominance made him untouchable. But if that dominance fades, so does the immunity. And Wolff, he's watching it all. He doesn't need to rush. He doesn't need to negotiate in public. All he needs to do is keep the door open and keep Mercedes looking like the calmer alternative. Because in 2026, when the slate is clean, that might be enough. So, what does this all mean for now? It means Red Bull have a decision to make. Do they rein Verstappen in, risking a fallout? Or do they let him continue unchecked, risking the team's stability? Neither option is easy, but both have consequences. And for Mercedes, it's a waiting game. The longer Red Bull's internal drama plays out, the more appealing Mercedes becomes. Stability sells, especially to a driver who's grown used to chaos. And this may go beyond just Verstappen. If tensions worsen and Red Bull's structure begins to crumble, Mercedes could appear not just as a career move, but as a rescue. The appeal of a team that doesn't implode after a bad weekend could sway not just Max, but other potential talents in the paddock. The perception is shifting. Red Bull is becoming the team of drama. Mercedes, the team of discipline. The sponsors are watching too. Marketability isn't just about speed, it's about image. Verstappen, while a phenomenal racer, has never been the darling of polished PR. But that image is harder to defend when even your own team labels you volatile. If Mercedes can offer a cleaner narrative, redemption, stability, a second chapter, the marketing upside could be massive. And the engineers, they talk. Technical staff don't enjoy walking on eggshells. If Verstappen's environment turns toxic, Red Bull risks more than just its driver. It risks losing the people who build the car. A mass exodus to Mercedes or even to a resurgent McLaren isn't unthinkable in this kind of atmosphere. So when Toto Wolff stays silent, don't mistake it for indifference. It might be the smartest play of all because the next time Verstappen explodes on the radio or takes a risk that costs Red Bull a podium or lashes out at a teammate, Mercedes won't need to say anything. The contrast will speak for itself. Come 2026, when the contracts are reopened and Mercedes have to fill that second seat next to George Russell, Verstappen could be front of the queue. And if Red Bull keep unraveling like this, Toto Wolff may not need to say a word because Verstappen might already be listening, especially if Verstappen, in search of a fresh start, sees a Mercedes what Red Bull is slowly losing control. So, what do you think? Has Red Bull finally lost control of Verstappen, or is Mercedes quietly setting the stage for a blockbuster move in 2026? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We're reading all of them. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories just like this. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.